have now reached the intersection where ideas, beliefs, and perspectives collide. So be free to be you. It's the XrossroadZ Podcast with your hosts, author, speaker, and transformational strategist, Barzini, and entrepreneur, empowerment coach, and tech diva, Dre Renee. If you're ready to talk love, business, politics, and everything in between, you're in for a ride. Welcome to the XrossroadZ Podcast.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your man, Hunter Greg, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barzini.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire, tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
What it do, what it does, what it is, what it was.
Don't you look nice today?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I decided that I was too tired to change clothes and kept my work clothes on. So
that's all right. Yeah, somebody's gonna wonder where the Dodger fitted is.
Right. I didn't have a hat on at work, but I kind of threw it on because I like it. You know.
Looks nice.
But, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm good. You know, got my tumbler. I'm good.
It's always a good day when we don't start the show with me talking shit.
Right, about me.
About you.
Yeah.
There, you know what? There was another our last episode you did good, and then
I almost got away with it.
Right, you fucked it up. And then talking about you on Pizzoink. I'm like, who the hell says that?
I was having an ABC moment. It's a Mizark. Chilling in the Mizark.
I got afraid because Mama said home by Dizza. Oh,
now look at you. See, right. You know it.
I do know it, but that was the 90s. The early 90s.
That's where I prefer to reside. I don't do whatever these kids do nowadays.
Listen, 90s R&B is forever.
Amen.
And I'm on record saying if my relationship is not like 90s R&B, I don't want it. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll throw that shit on in the car, and if you ain't body rolling with me, because you know that's pretty much like, you know. I'm talking cross colors, car canai, damage, use, like with it, you know, you gotta be on it. But this week is actually gonna be pretty lit because we haven't had a guest on the show in a minute.
I know.
And this week we have a guest. So for y'all, for those who watched Love Goals on Oprah Winfrey Network on OWN, we have a very, very, very special guest on us with today. Y'all know most of what we talk about is intersectionality between male and female dynamics, specifically in relationships. And this gentleman was one of the resident therapists on the show. He's done great work with couples, but he specializes these days in impostor syndrome. So we're going to get into some of that and a myriad of other different topics. But I want y'all, I want to welcome to the show the one, the only Stevon Lewis.
One and the only. That's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
I mean, shit. Hopefully, there's not another one out here like me. I don't know if the world can handle it.
Hey, I'm just saying. Well, we got the. You know what? I should do the whole intro over and let them know it's the. You know,
Stevon Lewis, you know me, you know, Stevie Luda to the fam, you know what I mean.
You know, hey, you know how they do when they talk about Ohio State, the Ohio State.
Yeah, they put that emphasis on there, man, unnecessarily so.
Right.
I said it. Yeah, I said what I said. Unnecessarily so.
I don't know how many Buckeyes we got listening to the show. And you know the crazy part, we don't know who the hell is watching this show. We people are, but we're talking engagement a lot these days and increasing the engagement so that we kind of know our fans' response and stuff like that. And we get an email from Apple Podcast that we are ranked in the top 100 in our category in the whole country of South Africa. And we was like South Africa.
We popping.
They love us over there. You know what I'm saying?
They love us over there. Johannesburg, what's up? What it do?
That's right.
All right. I'm gonna have to get the audio to that song from Coming to America when the king came to town. Shout out. Right. Shout out.
You just got yourself canceled for doing that.
Right. They don't listen to us no more. Hey,
absolutely not. Just that quick. You had a fan base, they left immediately.
That's like, don't like.
Absolutely.
Thumbs down.
Oh, right. Why would you do it? Why?
They just click that thumbs down. So, hey, it was a joke. It was a joke. I've never heard a South African comedian, but I'm pretty sure they do joke something like that. So
isn't that the Daily Show guy?
Yeah. You talking about Trevor Noah? Is he from South Africa?
Yes.
Wait, only one of the biggest comedians in the world is on.
I've never heard. I don't know anybody that plays basketball. Like what?
Wait, no. I didn't know he was from South Africa. I love Trevor, but I didn't know he was from South Africa.
Oh, this is starting off so rich. Oh my gosh.
Hey, I'm the one who edits the show, so this might not be. I ain't gonna even do myself like that. I'm fucking up. You
should edit this out. You should edit this out. In my professional opinion, you should edit this out.
But save it for a clip.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Hey, you know what's weird is I'm not usually on this side of these type of jokes.
Oh gosh, that's what makes it even funnier. I'm having a good time.
Oh, his A game is usually there. He's Steph Curry from way downtown.
Right.
Listen, because I went to a brunch on Sunday, right, for one of my homegirls' birthday, and we started talking about DMX, and so they was like doing a whole DMX thing. The DJ was doing a whole DMX mix, and all of a sudden stop. And we was in there like, she was like, I love this song. She's like, this song is like the Rough Riders anthem. And I was like,
that literally is the name of the song.
I was like, that's literally the name of the song. She was like, I was like, what gave it away?
Yeah.
Was she young? She has to be young. That's the only way I'm gonna give her a pass.
She's not. There's no passes given. She can take a joke though. She be joking, so she had to eat that one. But I was just like,
100%.
Yeah. So
hilarious.
All right, so y'all got me this week. It is what it is.
Hey.
You needed a teammate to do it though.
Clearly.
2001 coming here ganging up
in the building.
There it is.
I felt like I was gonna have some support this week. He thought just because it was two men, it was going down in that direction. I was like,
Hold on a second.
That black women going on in here. That's what's up. So, Stevon, why don't you tell the world? Because clearly we are aired around the world, when we're top 100 in South Africa.
Okay, we got to chill with all the flexes. We need to chill.
No, if I had a trophy, it would be like right here. No, but let the world know about your work, like past work, current work, and just like the direction you're going to take us on today.
For sure. I'm not sure what direction I'm going to take you on today, but we're going to go somewhere. Stevon Lewis, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm based out of Los Angeles, California, but Inglewood to be exact. I specialize in treating individuals struggling with imposter syndrome. So I think it's kind of become more of a buzzword now where people are talking about imposter syndrome a bit more. It's not a thing of where you feel like you're not who you are. It's more of a thing of where you feel like your accomplishments and the stuff you've done that's really dope and amazing, for whatever reason, you can't attach to that success. And so you feel like a fraud and you live in this fear that you're going to be found out to be such, even though none of that's true. And so I help people kind of get around that or get over that stuff. Like you mentioned, I was a resident therapist on Love Goals, the kind of, we call it unscripted show on OWN. And I've also been on Kev on Stage, the Love Hour podcast with Kev on Stage and his wife, Melissa. I was on there a couple of times. And I've done some speaking engagements, talking about imposter syndrome with like Tory Burch and Deluxe Media. And so, working on doing more speaking engagements around that stuff.
Dope. All coming in here, all accomplished and whatnot.
You know,
don't know what direction he gonna take us and everything else. And imposter syndrome it's real interesting because I've been familiar with like the symptoms of it, but I never knew that there was a name for it. And I believe you introduced me to the term when we were on the phone. You and I were actually having a conversation, and I was just talking about like things that I was experiencing, and you were like, that's imposter syndrome. So it's crazy that, you know, like that's your specialty, and in that moment that we were having that conversation. And so since then, I've been able to flex on people, because when I hear it, I'm like, you know, that's imposter syndrome. And in fact, you know,
I know a dude that specializes in treating it and stuff like that.
Don't think that I don't be throwing it out there. You know, I'm the guy that knows people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were talking, and the reason it came out is because you were talking about stuff you've done, and like, you know, I've known you for a while now, like, you know, we going on past 20 years and stuff, and so, you know, you were talking about the stuff you've done, and I've known you over the years and all the stuff you've accomplished, and you were talking about your book, which I think is probably like one of, you know, it was I think it was the first book, and now you're working on another one, or have completed another one, which is bananas. But then, we were talking about that, and like, you're just like, but sometimes I feel like, and I was like, wait, time, like, come on, bruh, you've done all this stuff. There's no way you're gonna talk yourself out of the fact that like, it doesn't really matter, or, you know, it's not as dope as it is. And I'm like, nah, we're not gonna do that today.
Hey, and so I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. And you're gonna hate it. You're gonna
maybe
right. So I'm going to invite you again to write the foreword to my next book.
I got busy. You hear me? Right. Man, life hit, bro, like in a major way. That's
dope, because I know it was all good because you had the show like after that conversation.
And
a whole lot of stuff was So one, congratulations on all of that. But I am who I am, and I'm still going to say,
and I owe you that forward. And this time we're gonna make it happen. I'm more in control of my schedule and life and such, so we're gonna make that happen for sure.
Now, how does that feel? Because so you know what, y'all. So this week we're talking about mental health and relationships. That is the title, and that's just a perfect segue to just get in the topic we normally kind of like banter. We have something that we're going to do in a second, but I just want to ask you this question before we get into the fuck segment. How does that feel to be in control of your time?
Man, it feels wonderful. Like, I don't think I can go back to giving up my time to somebody else, or even allowing somebody to have control of my time. I mean, so much so that I have, like, you know, some reticence with even getting Calendly. Like, I don't want people to just be able to schedule. I know I need to do it, but it's like, nah, my time is me. I need to control all of that. So I'm like that paranoid about it. But it's so freeing, man. I mean, I get to really set up, you know, my day. I get to like have clients. I have a number of clients that I want to see. I'm in control of all that. I'm working with the people that I want to work with, that I think I can do really good work, and we can, you know, have some really good gains. And yeah, man, I mean, I do speaking engagements, and I'm doing all the stuff I want to do and don't have to do any of the shit I don't.
Yeah.
That's gold.
You're everything I aspire to be.
Yeah.
So Dre's got something for us. We do a segment called right. You ready? She's like, all right.
No, I forgot I'm supposed to be working. I was just enjoying. Go ahead.
Fly on the wall over here. It's her show. She the co-host over here. Y'all both working. She's chilling. She's like, no, I'm listening to these motherfuckers.
She is the inspiration and all that. She is the show. We get all the feedback. She's like, oh my God, I just love her. She just knows how to handle you, and I love her voice. Yeah, I get it. I was like, you know, I'm on the show too, right?
I love y'all.
Non-factor.
Right. So, exactly. Yeah. And it has me saying the title of this segment, the fuck? You know. So on this segment started off called What the Fuck, or WTF, and then it just evolved because we talk about things that just have us saying the fuck. So we just shorten it. So it is DAFUQ, the fuck. Yeah. Right. So we pull stuff off of the internet and we respond to it on the show. And I want you to join us in the segment. So what we're going to do, Dre's going to read the meme that we've taken from. Did we get this one from Facebook?
That's where I saw it. I don't know where you originally.
This is not gonna go Facebook.
Right. So I've
mild. It's okay.
Right.
It's
I forgot. I'm the one that found it. So we have a group that you need to be in. So join us on the XrossroadZ group. That's XrossroadZ. Y'all, I'm gonna post that so y'all can have the spelling correct. And then they were chiming in, but we want to chime in on the show. So she's gonna read it, and because you're our guest, you get to respond to it first.
Oh, this is the part I wasn't ready for, but we about to make it do what it do.
Right.
It's mild.
Well, it's Facebook, so we'll see.
Okay. So the meme says, you are at a barbecue and notice another female making a plate of food for your man. What would you do? Fellas, if you're the guy in this situation, what's your next move?
So in this scenario, we are all agreeing that your woman, your partner doesn't know this other lady.
Right.
That's
assumed.
It's assumed. But does that always matter is the question. So
well, if I'm in that situation, I'm just gonna grab another plate. She wasn't making that for me. I had no idea. Like I'm just gonna grab a plate like that. I had no idea. Like if she ain't making it for everybody, I might get that passed to the homie. Like who is it? Oh, this for you. I got my own. I'm all good. Appreciate you. Absolutely not. You're not gonna get me locked up for that.
He's dodging that bullet.
Absolutely not.
That was that Matrix dodge.
Yeah, 100%.
That was smooth too. That was smooth.
But why would she do that? What like, why would you? Don't do that. What?
Listen.
Oh, she was trying to be nice. You could try to explain that away.
Right. Hey, look, now you can't knock it off because that's a long ride home, and you know it.
But she was being nice to everybody, wasn't she? I mean,
Now I want you to look at your woman's. I want you to imagine your woman's face when you say that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not. That's why I said I'm gonna go ahead. This was for you, I think, bro.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing another plate. Absolutely not.
Right. So I'm the guy in the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm gonna put it on my girl. I'm like, hey. No, not the blame.
Oh, I was like, yo, bro, hey, you about to be single, man. You about to leave with her.
I'm already single, so that's
then you gonna stay there, guys.
That's probably why I'm still single. So, no, what I meant is I'll tell the lady like, oh, you know what? Thank you, but my woman's actually making me a plate. So I appreciate it though, but I'm gonna go ahead and wait for her.
Oh, that's nice.
That's a good say, because I thought you was about to be like, well, I'm gonna put it on her. Like, hey, how come you wasn't making it? Like, I was like, bro.
I mean, no. I absolutely am going to do that later. Like, hey, because I'm still gonna hear something. Okay, let's keep it 100. You're gonna hear something regardless. You didn't, even if you don't accept the plate, right? Because if you're dealing with somebody like my ex, well, why would she think that it was okay to make you a plate? What did you do?
It was sunny outside. I have no idea. I can't predict the behavior of everybody.
Listen. It's not gonna matter.
Yeah.
So, and me, I'm like, well, if you have fixed my plate, which is another argument. I can have that argument, but
that's gonna be an argument. That's as long as you're clear. That's gonna be an argument for sure.
Oh, I'm clear, but at least like you get to pick your time. I get to pick the argument. So. Because it's inevitable at this point, Yeah.
We gonna argue now. I'm get to decide what we argue about.
Right. So the resident woman and the matriarch of the show. What is your take? You are
matriarch.
There you go.
That made me sound.
All the respect. Look at that.
Right. Well, I didn't notice this until just now. This does not have anything to do with the plate yet. But why are we referred to as females and you guys are referred to as men? I just wanted to point that out. But other than that, look at your face. But that's what I just looked at. I was like,
I can tell you who wrote that meme, man.
I'm like, but when did female become like it's
not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm trying to figure why isn't it female and male or woman and man? Yeah, because there's a distinction for.
Okay, wait. So read it again. Read it again.
You are at a barbecue and notice another female making a plate of food for your man. What would you do?
So it's not. You're not gonna say for your male.
Okay.
She was
granted.
Right. They were distinguishing the relationship.
Yeah. Man in the term of relationship, but still, why is it not another woman? But whatever. That's not what we came here for.
Well, maybe that's why we are here.
That might be why we're here.
Okay. Well, we'll find out. Let me make sure I got my drink.
No, my response initially was, well, where am I and what am I doing? Because I could not imagine that. I mean, unless I didn't know that their food was ready to be served, why am I sitting down while some other woman is like, here you go. Like so I had questions about that. But if for whatever reason, the plate was made and brought to him, maybe I'm in the restaurant, I don't know.
Maybe you send him over to make your plate.
I mean, yeah. And I'm just like, how would I react? I mean, I don't have anything to worry about. So I guess I wouldn't really get mad, right? Like, it's really just, it depends on who it is. It really depends on who it is. Because, yeah, just someone doing a good deed, there's no reason to be upset about that, I suppose. But, women know other women. And so I think that's where it gets sticky. One of the folks in the group was asking one of the guys, was like, why would women get upset? And I think that would be it. If the woman was an ex or, somebody that is trying to push up or something like that, I think that would cause an issue. It probably would cause an issue for some people, no matter who it is. But I would say for me, it really depends on who it is. Somebody that's just being kind and, great. Also, we were laughing because a number of us were like, well, our men are picky, so you can go ahead and make this plate. He's going to look at it like, I don't want this shit. So it's that might be a fail.
I'm not even eating. Like,
that's a fail for you anyway. So for me, I'm not going to act up. But I can't say that, in my day I would not have, or that I don't know people. Yeah, no.
There's some tough discussion going on now.
But no, because plates are an issue. And Stevon, you can probably weigh in on both sides. So I know several women in the post would take issue with another woman making their man a plate, right? Now, if we flip that, right? Like for me, so there was another one a while ago where it's like a woman is making plates. And who got served first was the question, like the issue. I think she made her dad's plate before her husband's plate, and the husband got mad, right? And so for me, something like that, I absolutely would take issue. Like, I don't mind my woman actually if she wants to serve people in the house, because that's what she does. Like my ex was actually like that. She would make like everybody's plate. Cool. But you serve another man before me and we got problems.
So even if we're in dad's house, he doesn't get the first plate.
Is my dad her man?
No, of course not. But we're in his house. We're not in your house.
Don't care.
Doesn't matter. Okay. I just want to be clear.
Because the issue is like we're assigning intention to the behavior, right? So like her serving her dad first, it has meaning behind it.
Wait, are we saying okay? Well, you're saying that we're at her dad's house?
Yes. Difference is his food.
I would probably still I'd probably still have feelings about it. Like, if I'm just being completely honest, I probably still have feelings about it. I don't know if I would trip as hard, especially like if we have you know what I mean? Like, I'd be conflicted. I would have an issue, but to bring the issue up, I'm like, should I trip? Is that a thing? Like, you know what I mean? Because yeah, I don't know, but I would definitely still feel something though.
That's interesting.
Go on. I love it. Go on. That is interesting. Go on and unpack it.
I mean, because it says that then the behavior, it's almost like this one instance now is negating a lot of the behavior and experience you guys have outside of this before this. Like, I'm assuming this isn't the first time, you guys have been around dad, so that where you stand in her life. But, this act here is like, it has a lot of meaning now about where your relationship is or where she views you. And I'm saying it's a plate of food we talking about. We could die on that hill if you want to. But, in the grand scheme of things, chestnut checkers, maybe it's not really that important.
Yeah, and I definitely do assign intent to it. And I'm not somebody, I don't necessarily negate like everything like before and after, but I am a moment to moment person. You know what I mean? And so for me, and maybe this is negation, I don't know, but it's like if our normalcy is, you've always served me first, right? Because there have been times where when she's mad at me, she won't make my plate. And this is actually, you know what? Matter of fact, it did happen. We were at my brother's house, and she was mad at me. No, we talk. Listen.
Yeah, it's all experiences.
We do this.
Okay.
We don't put people's names.
Continue, sir. I am a guest on you guys' show. By all means, go do what you normally do.
Yeah, we don't say names, but we would definitely give experience.
They don't know who they are.
Listen, if she listening, then she didn't got an earful already by now because we over 20 episodes in. So she was mad at me, and she made my boy a plate and served down.
Oh, that's different. That's not the same as dad. She made your boy a plate. Hey, that's reckless. That's saying that was intentional. There was intent behind that.
And don't think that she didn't get that. Don't you ever?
Yeah, that was intent behind it. That was intentional. Yeah, she knew that was.
And your boy should have been like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, he should have. I don't even eat food.
Like, there's a relationship there, so it's closest. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's my god sister's husband, but like he didn't trip, but I don't think he knew that because
he didn't know the whole dynamics of the situation.
Right. And I wouldn't have been mad at him. I'm looking at her because I know what you're doing, and I didn't react in the moment. I'm like, I know what you're trying. You're trying to make me mad. You're trying because you know how I feel about that. Because we talked in another episode like. Acts of service is one of my love languages, and if there's something about like my woman fixing my plate that I just love, it's not a subservient thing, but it's a servitude thing, and I feel and receive love in that way, you know. And so for you to offer that to someone else above me, you know what I mean? When in context, an issue in a relationship was that I felt you gave more people had access to you above me, and that you prioritize other people in your life above me. Yeah. So, you know, and you know that. And so you played on maybe it's an insecurity. I don't know if we want to classify that as that, but whatever. It was that, you know what I'm saying? And you knew that and you purposely did it. You know,
it's a trigger. It's a trigger for you. Like, right. And so she pressed that button in order to get a response or to make you feel some kind of pain.
Right. And she released the Kraken.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, you know, we moved on from that relationship now, it seems.
Listen. It's been 7 years and it's still fresh.
Ooh, I can tell.
So ladies, make plates.
Hey, listen,
don't make plates for anybody else.
Don't be around no plates. If you a dude, don't even look at utensils, but go the other way.
Right, or just make your own damn plate.
Don't even eat. I don't even eat. I'm fasting that day. I don't even eat food.
Hilarious.
Right. So when we talk mental health in relationships, and I know you've probably dealt with a lot of these things, these triggers, like stuff that we just talked about. How often does just never mind the dynamics of people in and of themselves, like, hey, I'm this type of person, she's that type of person, and vice versa. But when we start talking about mental health in general, like the things that we struggle with, you know, on top of we're individuals trying to, you know, intersect our lives, what are the things that are most common, or do you see, or some of like the biggest impediments in that regard?
So, I mean, common is like, very like depression, anxiety for sure. And, you know, we start to talk about like childhood trauma or previous traumas, you know, relationship trauma. But I think the thing that is the issue or what makes it an issue is how well is that stuff managed? So on an individual level, what work has the person done to be able to manage whatever, you know, mental health issues or things that they struggle with prior to being in relationship with another person? If they've done a lot of work and have coping skills to be able to do that stuff, then, you know, I would say things can, you know, not that there won't be any issues ever, but, you know, it'll be less negatively impactful, I guess, or whatnot. But if that hasn't been done and I haven't done my own work or I'm not managing my own triggers and, you know, have coping skills to deal with that stuff or a way to be able to healthily kind of, you know, converse about that, then it's going to be problems, right? And I think oftentimes what happens is that we get clouded by the love and the feelings and the emotions we have for an individual, and we ignore some of the things that are what we, you know, piss poor behavior, right? It's stuff that's unhealthy, toxic, unacceptable, but we let it give them a pass because we care about the individual so much. And I think that's where the issue is that at the foundation, we've allowed a lot of stuff to kind of get down the road. And then we try to undo that a year, 2 years in. And it's like, well, now you're switching stuff up because it seemed like you were okay with it when you weren't ever really okay, but you wanted that relationship. You wanted that emotional connection you had.
That's really good. I was going to say that because I've had an experience with someone who was, I wouldn't even say dealing with it, trying to act like it wasn't a thing. At first, I didn't know because they weren't dealing with it. I just thought like, dang, you mean, like I didn't really.
What a jackass.
Like, what did I do today? And then as you deal with more and read more, then you start, becoming familiar with things like gaslighting and narcissism. Like I didn't know what any of that stuff was, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I absolutely experienced that. And so what's the best way to address that with your partner without, making them feel bad? Because I think a lot of times, we're in the situation like, man, I don't want to say like, I don't want to be with you because of this, but it's hurting me, or I don't know how to deal with it because you're not dealing with it. So what's a productive way to have that kind of conversation?
So two things. First, when you're saying it, you're saying that the person wasn't addressing it. Were they not aware that they had some mental health issues going on, or were they in denial about them?
Denial.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, where they're actively trying to pretend as though they do not have anything going on with them that's impacting their daily functioning with other people. Yeah, that's a tough one. The second part, well, then that's like that changes the whole conversation because that person is saying nothing's wrong with me. It's really you. I don't know how you have a productive situation with someone who's not willing to acknowledge, their own kind of, or be accountable for their own behavior and the impact it has on other people. But to your second point of like what to do about that, I think I go to the individual, right? Like not the other person we're in relationship, but me. Like, why am I hesitating about wanting to have a conversation about the foundation or the forward progression of this relationship? Why am I scared about that? And I think that's, trying to preserve something that isn't real because you want to preserve something that isn't real, right? Like you have this idea of what this relationship could be. So on paper, it looks real nice, but in reality, it's really not that. And so what happens is that we're trying to say, well, there's this potential. We can get there. And I'm saying, well, if this person's in denial, I don't know that that's realistic. I don't know that you are going to get there. Like, show me how we get from A to B if he doesn't want to do or she doesn't want to do X. Like that does not happen. But you're selling yourself a narrative about what's possible. And I'm saying, possibility doesn't eat probability, right? Like that doesn't mean or equal that just because it's, there's a chance that this could happen, that the chance is increased because, for whatever reason.
And that's denial on both sides is what it
right.
sounds like.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right. Something you're hoping against hope sometimes.
Yeah.
And that can be it can be difficult depending on like where you came from and stuff like that. So we talk, like I said, we get real transparent on.
I was about to say this is about to go deep now. You're talking about family of origin,
right? Yeah. So it's like when you trace the genesis of whatever's going on, you know what I mean? It's because that it translates to how we behave, how we look at things, how we receive love, give love, and all these different things. And so it's kind of like for me, I watched unhappy marriages, like my father's a three-time divorcee, right?
Oh yeah, three-peat.
Right. You know what I mean? So that, what I'm saying, directly impacts how I approach relationships. You know what I mean? And the dynamics that I see in relationships and stuff like that. So I've watched like, trying to work it out, trying to stick it through. God doesn't like divorce. All these narratives that we come up with. And so we're in these very toxic, and I hate the word toxic, but I'm gonna just use it because it's
one of the buzzwords now. Everything's toxic, right? But I mean, hey, it's unhealthy. How about that?
An unhealthy relationship, but trying to work it out, like trying to stick it through. Like we're adults and you can't just run because you're having problems and blah, but like dying and just miserable and dying on the inside. You know what I mean? And you can be with somebody who's not a bad person, but they're bad for you, and they can become a bad person. You know what I mean? And so and you're creating trauma, and you don't know how deep it's gone. And so it's like, where do you or how would you help someone to draw the line between this is something that can be worked out? Like you know, like you can't just run from the relationship because you're having a problem versus no, like come on. At some point, you got to know like this is not working and walk away.
Right. So it's like guarding against the idea of, you know, are you operating with like a low frustration tolerance where you're trying to just avoid any unpleasantness? And so at the side of an argument, which is like a whole thing on perfectionism that we can go into, but, you know, relationship, argument, roadblock, speed bump, I'm out of there immediately. Like, right, I'm avoiding all that stuff. Or is it something where it's like, hey, like you said, we aren't terrible human beings independently, but together we don't bring out the best in one another. And that if the way I think about it is this, like, it's not my job as a therapist to tell you whether your relationship can work or not. I mean, you know, save for, you know, like interpartner violence or something like that, which is, you know, a whole nother level of something. But, you know, you've seen people who are in relationship and to you, it could look unhealthy, but for them, hey, it's been 22 years. And it's like, well, there you go. Like, y'all, it works for you. Y'all found a way to make that work for 22 years. I couldn't do it for 2 seconds, but that's on you. I don't have to do it. But then there's the part of where if you're hurting yourself or you're having to sacrifice who you are in order to maintain this relationship, I don't know that that's appropriate, right? Like, I don't know that I should have to hurt in order for this other person to be okay or for this thing to work. And if that's being asked of me, then I can't thrive in that kind of environment. And why would you want to do that to someone else or to yourself? And so that would be the question I would ask, like, hey, if this, like, let's be adults about this. Like, if this doesn't work for you, and just because you want it to work doesn't mean that it can. So let's make a real adult decision about that. Are you saying you're going to be okay with hurting for the rest of your life kind of in perpetuity? Or is this kind of a decision you need to make about your relationship and where it goes forward?
Yeah.
And there's nothing cute about being a martyr. Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah. Because it connects to what Dre said a second ago of like being silent because you don't want to hurt the other person's feelings by having the conversation. And I'm just always of the mindset, if you're hurting me, I don't owe you shit.
Like, that's a callous way to put it, but I follow.
But no, because I say things in a provocative manner, but when I mean, okay, I'll use an example of like cheating, right? Let's just say you're treating your partner like shit, right? And then they step out to go get the love that they're missing and everything else, and they have that moment or whatever they did outside of you. The person who cheats because they step outside of the relationship, that's all we ever focus on. And now we forget about all the shit that led up to the cheating because the belief is that and when someone cheats, they just decided to cheat and you had nothing to do with that. And now I completely disagree with that. Now you can absolutely contribute to that. And so a lot of people, it's a tough pill to swallow and they don't want that accountability. Like this is my belief.
When you take it out of context, it's like it's easier to do, right? Like,
what I mean, because I don't believe cheating is simply engaging with someone outside of the relationship, right? For me, a relationship is two people who are agreeing to provide one another with those things that we either cannot or would otherwise not want to provide for ourselves, right? So we're talking about companionship, support, encouragement, sex, conversation, whatever. These are things that we don't do for ourselves that we look to someone else to give us. And so when we're in a relationship, we're agreeing to provide these things for one another, right? And we're also agreeing not to seek them outside of this relationship, right? Whether that's
has that been explicitly stated?
I was just about to say whether that's I'm just saying this is my belief of my purview of a relationship, right? These are these unspoken things. Like whoever says, okay, you can't be going fucking somebody else.
that might be the problem.
Right. Like you didn't say we could, but it's usually if we're being exclusive, it's understood, right? But what I mean is, so if you're in this relationship and this person is depriving you of those things that we've agreed, let's say we did have an explicit conversation, but you're denying me these things that you agreed to provide me, and then I go get them elsewhere. Now I'm wrong, right? We're forgetting about the fact that you denied these things. You cheated me out of the relationship by not playing your role. You see what I'm saying? And so, but we forget all of that. And so people always say, why didn't you just leave? Well, it's not just that. Why didn't they just leave if they were going to cheat me out of the things that they, you know what I mean? Those are the things that we don't ask. We look at the cliche and the societal norms of, you know, well, you should leave as if I owe you something. So my thing is, you treated me like shit. You don't listen to me. You talk greasy to me all the time. You do all these things. And then when I respond to it, like my cheating is a response to this. Not always. I'm saying like there are people that's just out there doing selfish shit. But in this example, I'm responding to what you're doing to me.
Yeah.
But the expectation is I grant you, I love you enough to leave you before I respond to the thing. Like, no, fuck you.
Right.
I'm not thinking about your feelings, your well-being. I'm not thinking about anything. I am thinking about me because you aren't.
Right.
You know?
It's no different from, when you take it out of context. Like, I think people get caught up on the fact of like relationship and what, like you said, all these unspoken rules around that. So that, if you're upset about something, then you should just leave. You shouldn't hurt the other person. You shouldn't do this. All these demands we're placing on, relationship and how people are supposed to behave in them. You take it back to like kids, kid takes another kid's toy, kid who has a toy taken hits the other kid. What you're saying in that instance is that the kid who hit the guy who took the toy is the one who's in the wrong, right? And it's like, well, he wouldn't have hit that kid had he not taken his toy. I'm not saying, one is less wrong than the other. How about they're both culpable, right? Like they both have some accountability in the outcome of that situation. Start there, and then we correct both of those behaviors.
Right. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't know how we move there because that's just not how.
And then there's the point of, okay, denying me. Is it denying me completely, or is it you don't get it in the case of sex, like, right? You don't get it as often as you want. Like people will use varying degrees. I think I can understand you're completely like shut down. Don't touch me. Don't look at me. Versus, I don't feel well today, or something might be going on at work. I might be dealing with a mental health situation, maybe that I'm aware of, maybe that I'm not aware of. And then, I look up and you're out in the street because, well, all of a sudden you don't, in the case of my reality shows, Love and Marriage Huntsville, if you like Martell and, you're not satisfying me, then, hey, how about a conversation? Can we talk about it? Or is it just like, well,
and that's part of it too, is like, how often are couples talking about expectations around these kind of topics that can be kind of emotionally charged, right? Like it's not an easy conversation. Like people are having a ton of sex. They're not talking about it a whole lot. We don't talk about finances. Like there's these things that we don't like to have conversations about, but have high impact on the relationship. And so, like you said, if there's a reason behind, why this person isn't being satisfied, it's like, well, have you communicated your needs about that stuff? Has the person tried to? Are they able to meet your needs? Because it's like, what's the outcome? Like, why is this happening? What we often try to do is kind of assign, again, that intent is that, well, they don't want to, right? Because we know I'm a good person. If I knew your needs, I would try my damnedest to try to meet them. That doesn't mean they aren't trying. Maybe they're just incapable, or maybe there's some other extenuating circumstances that are preventing that. Do you have all the information before you respond? And what have you tried in order to, I guess you as a team, because we were talking about relationship, we in this together. What have you guys done as a unit to kind of, overcome this? Like, did you guys try on your own? Did you get some outside expertise to help support through that? And I think that like oftentimes people are like, well, it should, and I don't want to go into like this, fairy tale belief about relationships that people have, because, I don't want to get prosecuted, but, it's a real deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We just talked about, there was an example about what you were just saying, but flipped a little bit. So we did a show on love languages, right? And we were talking about, our love languages and how we give love, but also how we receive love. And so there was an example given from a book called DNA of Relationships, right? So the analogy was like the couple, it's like at a restaurant and one person is the customer and the other person is the server. And so the point was you may not be well versed in loving someone in the language that they receive love. And so you replace that with what you're good at doing. So the example was, if I'm ordering, I love pasta Alfredo, right? Like chicken and shrimp. So I ordered the Alfredo, and they're like, no, I actually want to bring you the marinara. We make a better marinara. And you know, so it was this back and forth, like, you know what, I really believe that you make a great marinara, but you know what I really enjoy is some Alfredo. So if you could just bring me that would be dope. And they insist, you know. So I gave the whole example, but it was just this whole back and forth, right? And then the person agrees, like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give you Alfredo, and then they bring marinara anyway, because that's what they're good at. Like every person that's ever come through has ordered the marinara, and they've loved the marinara, and they've praised and they've raved about this marinara, and I'm great at marinara. But you don't want the marinara. You want me to go do I'm not good at Alfredo, and you keep asking me for it.
Right.
And you're wrong for that. You're putting me you're making me uncomfortable because you're asking of me what I'm not capable or maybe not willing to try. When I'm like, you know what? I don't care if you're not great at Alfredo. I still I appreciate the effort of you making the Alfredo, and if you keep making it, you'll get better at it.
Right.
Like, all I want you to is to try to make the Alfredo. You won't even try to make Alfredo. You just want to make marinara because you're good at it, you know? And so it was.
And the message you get is that, like, I don't value you enough to try to, you know, meet you where you are. I'm going to do what I want to do. It's the expecting me from you. You know, I'm not going to do or give you what you want. And so when I receive that, it's like, well, you aren't trying to please me. You aren't trying to meet my needs. Like, then why would I go out of my way to make you happy, make you comfortable, make you feel loved if I'm not going to get any reciprocation?
Yeah, absolutely. And reciprocity and equity is just always a huge conversation.
Well, I want to get back into your professional backyard with imposter syndrome. So I'm a business coach, and I work with small businesses and solopreneurs to develop their brand, sometimes rebranding. And so a lot of times we work around pricing, right? And I was having this conversation with Barzini today, like the majority of people that I talked to in the last couple of days are saying something like, I know that I'm probably lowballing myself, but right. And you know, we laugh, but it's like, oh my God. And the majority of this, which makes it hurt me more, is they're Black women, right? And so, but I see others that are charging way more for way less. And so, you know, where does imposter syndrome stem from, and what are some things that we can apply if we find ourselves having these types of feelings?
Man, that's a great question, because I think you're hitting on something of where it definitely Black women, but you know, people of color in general, where, you know, because of kind of our history in the workspace or just, you know, in corporate America or what have you, we often kind of, I don't want to say cheapen, but we diminish or decrease our worth and don't feel kind of comfortable asking for what is, because oftentimes we don't get, right? So when you talk about imposter syndrome, you know, I don't want to be like that typical, you know, kind of cliche therapist and going back, but a lot of it starts in childhood, right? You start to think about, and this is just stuff that I found kind of in the work that I do, is that, you know, there's some common kind of themes that come up for individuals that struggle with it. And so I guess part of the recipe or the ingredients are, if you come from a household where you have parents who were super critical, so they're kind of always pointing out where you needed to improve, you know, sit up straight, don't chew your food like that, you know, pull your pants up, just all sorts of things. There's little nitpicking things. It starts to send this message that you aren't doing things well. And so you didn't get a lot of praise to kind of offset that belief. And so as a result, you're like, okay, well, I must make a lot of mistakes. Or if you had to do something, you know, pretty amazing to get any level of praise. So we're talking about you had to graduate, you know, valedictorian, or, you know, be in medical school or something like that. And it's like, well, yeah, those are like once in a lifetime things, and like only one or two people in school are going to get those things. That if that's not me, then what are you saying? And so again, another message of I don't have what it takes. And then you start to kind of see like, well, you know, as I grow up, I have this belief. And so when something doesn't go the way I plan, it starts to serve or support, you know, this core belief I have about myself. So you start thinking about other instances as you grow or mature into adulthood, where, you know, say if you're the only person of color in a majority white space, and the treatment you're getting, you're like, I'm getting treated differently, or I look around and I don't see anyone else that looks like me. Maybe I don't belong in here, right? And so it's these things that happen to us along our trajectory or kind of, you know, development that sends messages to us that like, hey, you know what, I don't really know what I'm doing. Another big one is that if you're the first in your family or the only person in your family to do something and everybody else hasn't done that stuff, that's like a huge one, right? So it's like nobody in my family, has advanced degrees like this, or, has, done the things I've done or has the success I have. So then how do I really know or have what it takes if I look around and like the best somebody got was, high school, GED or something like that, or, maybe pops is incarcerated, mom barely finished high school. None of that really suggests that I should be, a doctoral student or something like that, right? Like that doesn't really jive. And so that starts to feed on us too, because it's like, well, the family I come from, I can't be so different from them. But the way that, like, I guess part of it is that then, like, as you succeed and you have some success, what happens is that you tell yourself it must be luck because I know about myself and I know that I don't have what it takes. So it can't have been me, right? It couldn't have been me. That's impossible. And so we start to associate or explain away why this good fortune came to us. And so part of what I have to do is, kind of, I guess, recalibrate people's perception of themselves to get them to kind of take in information, and I have like interventions and stuff I use. One is like collecting data. It's an activity I have, my clients complete where they go around and they ask people kind of what their top 5 strengths are, right? So you're getting a collection of information from different people. So it's, maybe you ask a family member, maybe you ask your significant other, maybe you ask your best friend, but also maybe you ask a coworker who doesn't know you all that well. And what you'll find is that a lot of these people are saying the same thing. So like, unless they got together on a phone call to say, hey, like, let's all come up with what do you think Stevon's strengths are, then this is what you're putting out to the world. And that's just facts, right? Like we can't argue that. That's objective information. It's undeniable, evidence. And so you got to hold on to that. And so getting people to be able to attach to more objective or tangible evidence that supports that, like, hey, this isn't luck if you do this time and time again. Otherwise, you're the luckiest person on the face of the earth. And if that's the case, go ahead and pick some lottery numbers for me because we're about to cash out.
I love it.
It's crazy because a lot of people suffer from it and think in that fashion and don't know how long. It just connects me to like back when I was doing music. You know what I mean? I still love music. I still miss being on the stage and everything else. But when I would produce a track or write a verse, the two people whose validation I always sought were my brother and my girl at the time. Right. And so I would always, it had to be a mindset shift.
Wait, not me? Not me?
But you loved everything that I did. Like, I don't ever remember you ever saying something that you didn't like. It was always like you was always like,
I was always with it.
Yeah, you was always with it.
Oh, but I have a question. So like the fact that you're saying that she was always with it, then that kind of diminishes the quality of her praise of you? Like it doesn't count as much because she liked it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I expected it. I don't think, it made me feel good, but I knew she was down for whatever I did, she was always there. Plus, when I first read it, she wasn't around. Like my brother lived in the house and my girl was always with me. So
gotcha.
They were like accessible, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think it wasn't that Dre's opinion would have been diminished, but I don't think if she didn't like it, I didn't experience her ever saying like, that's whack. You know what I mean? But I have before. So it might have been more of, like I need their approval. I always had her approval, so I didn't seek it. But theirs was, they would be like, that one was cool, or that's, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't always like consistent. And so the question was always, hey, listen to this verse and tell me if it's hot. Listen to this and tell me if it's hot, right? And so I got tired of like, I don't want to listen to it right now. I was like, but I'd see them praise like other people's stuff. So I was like, man, fuck them. And
you felt some type of way.
Right. But I would still share, but I changed what I said. I was like, hey, listen to this hot verse I just wrote.
I like that. I like it.
What I'm saying? And so it was more like, I didn't believe it was hot and I needed someone else to tell me it was hot versus like, no, I just wrote this shit. Of course I believe it's hot. Hey, check this out. So when I started doing that, I'm like, I'm already confirming that it's hot. I just want you to share in the hotness with me.
Yep.
And it started to change my whole swag, the way that I spit, like everything, like the way that I moved, the way that I said it. It was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nigga, I don't need you to tell me it's hot. Yes. I'm sharing this hot. I'm blessing you. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
And it changed a lot for me. So to the point to where, like people, y'all both know well, versus people calling me arrogant or this and that, but it's like that it was the price that I paid to not suffer from seeking validation from other people, because a lot of people didn't know how low my confidence was.
Right.
Like,
and that's the thing. Like, that's another thing is people don't, because they see what you're accomplishing, they're like, you don't need my opinion, or, my opinion doesn't matter. And you're like, absolutely not. I am masking. And this is where the fraud part comes in, is like, I am not really confident in what I've been doing and accomplishing, even though I'm getting the results, that I need constant validation. Like, the more success I have, the harder it becomes to fool everybody, is what we tell ourselves. Yeah. And so, like, the anxiety kind of increases around that, of like, now the more exposure I get, the more chances I have to kind of be, found out. And so I think that's kind of the concern. But like, I like the way you switched it, is you took it from external validation to say like, hey, why do I need their opinion to tell me how good my stuff is? Like, why can't I just say my stuff is good? Right. And that be independent of whether people like it or not. Because as you were talking, I was like, well, what does it matter if your brother, and I'm not, shitting on your brother by any means, or your girl at the time, but like, all it says is that they like it. But I don't know if that has like really any meaning about what the rest of the world's going to feel about it.
Yeah. And it creates this level of stagnation. It's real crazy. And I still do it. I still have the thoughts, but I still do the act anyway. You know what I mean? Because the only way I'm ever going to know if someone loves it or not is to do it.
Right. So feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right. And so I talk to Dre and stuff like that, but I know like people will see me accomplish stuff and they're like back to back, and to them it's like, dang, you just be doing stuff. And they don't know like how long I've had this concept, or how long it's taken me to execute. Like, the book came out and people think it was just, I decided one day I'm going to write a book. And no, like, the book came from something completely different, and it turned into a book. But now that I know the process of writing a book, now this next one is already, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just did that at the beginning of the show. Like, damn, you already on another book. Like,
right. While I got something as far as the marketing, like, for this book. So it's like, everything, when I look back, like our conversation, everything that I've ever said that I wanted to do, I've done.
Right.
And yet I still feel like, dang, do I know what I'm talking about? Is this really for? But
that's the crazy part. It's like, the part that's baffling is, well, what are you using for evidence then? Right? Like, if that doesn't serve, the fact that you've done all these things doesn't serve to help you feel like you know what you're doing, because you're doing the thing you say you don't know what you're doing. Like, what are you using for evidence? Like, what do you need? And what comes out is that there's some level of perfection. So like, what we start to do, well, I don't do it as well as like X person, and it's like the 1% of people that do something. So like, I play basketball, I'm good, but I'm not, I can't shoot like Steph Curry. And it's like, well, like, most of the people in the league are not him. So like, what are we doing? Like, what are you talking about? Like, if that's your litmus, like, if either you're Steph Curry or you're trash, then most people in the league suck, is what you're telling me. Right. And I think that's where we get to, is that, well, it didn't look like this person. And I'm saying, well, don't negate or pathologize kind of how you operate and say like, well, because I do it differently, that now means bad. It just means it's not the same. Like, let's be clear about what our words and language are. And I'm often kind of working with people. So like, if you notice, like, even in this conversation, I pick up on words. Like, what do you say? Like, you said this thing, what do you mean? Because you're sending your brain a message, and I need you to be clear and aware of what that message is, because it might not be the wrong one. I mean, the right one. And if it is the wrong one, then you're setting yourself up to have, some feelings associated with that are inappropriate for what you're doing.
Yeah. That's really good. And how does that potentially tie back into a relationship? So I'm suffering with imposter syndrome. I'm dealing with this on my professional side. What does that look like, or what can that look like in my relationship?
Well, it looks like you getting mad because somebody else made your bed a plate. That's what you over here hot because somebody made him a plate. Look at you, Jay. Why are you doing that? No, I'm just messing with you. Well, I mean, what happens? It can look like insecurity, right? Like, I mean, that you're operating in a way where you're saying, or probably have a core belief about yourself that you don't deserve this other person. And so if that's the case, then I would say, probably more anxious about the fact that they may recognize that, they could do better. And if you're telling yourself that, then it might show up as either you being, very insecure, and lashing out when they go, hang out with friends too long or do stuff because you're like, well, that's more opportunity for them to see that I don't have what, they deserve better than me and they're going to find somebody else. Or there could be, this opportunity or like this situation of where you prematurely kind of end things because you're like, this person's doing this. I don't deserve them. So let me kind of walk away prior to them, hurting me.
Mm-hmm. That's dope. That's dope.
That's really good.
So y'all, look, I'm always talking about like it's so hard to put a bow on these topics and everything else. So I'm not going to. We normally end our show with final thoughts, but what I want to do is I'm going to forego final thoughts for this episode, and I want to have you on for another episode. We're gonna do a part 2 of this.
Jason is king of part 2, child.
Hey,
he wants a good part 2. There's some part 2s that he set up that we never even did a part 2.
Well,
He's like, you know what? This is so good. We're gonna do a part 2.
I'm game for a part 2. This is fun.
That means I got to go back to them episodes and we're gonna do it again. That's just more content. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
I don't know what Alexa's saying to me right now, but she's just talking through my whole show.
You about to shut your whole program. You probably was talking shit about her. How she hot.
Listen, people be saying I'm in a whole relationship with her. She's like Jarvis, like from like she runs the house. She just runs the house. But y'all, this has been yet another awesome episode of the Crossroads. We're gonna bring Stevon back for a part 2 of this, and it's actually gonna happen this time. But until next week, y'all, I'm your man, Hunter Grand, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barzini.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire and tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
And remember, always be free, to be you. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
We want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for our email list for more episodes and projects from your hosts, Barzini and Dre Renee. Until next time, this has been the Crossroads Podcast. And remember, be free to be you.